So who else have you covered in this area? There's been a lot of momentum over the last 2 years, but we have also seen a fraying of the consensus around the Paris Agreement. So the things that really underlie that are the developed world commitment to delivering $100 billion worth of finance per year to the developing world to enable them to make the transition to a low carbon economy and help to build resilience to the effects of climate change and so on. Now, the developed world so far has not delivered on that promise, and that has led to two things, one of which is a breakdown in trust and kind of essentially those two camps. But also there are countries, the more authoritarian regimes, who want to kind of take apart the international rules-based system. It's given them an excuse. So I think it is really important that we stop providing that excuse to them.
Interesting to see what happens. I mean,
yeah, there's a lot going on. A lot of countries have actually deployed their COVID responses towards greening their economy. And so, like in New Zealand, where we've had this huge influx of capital going into the economy, some of them are directing that money in ways that will really accelerate the transition, right? So that's a good thing. Another good thing is that, like I said, a number of countries have really lifted their ambition in terms of the targets that they've been setting for themselves, and I don't think people have noticed because they've been so busy with the pandemic. On the flip side, it is really clear, especially in the developing world, where countries were kind of struggling anyway, that COVID has had a massive impact on their economies and on their fiscal situations, and that just makes it so much harder to maintain any momentum. So it is a real mixed bag.
Are you going to be able to keep everyone together, do you think?
I think that there are a lot of lessons that we can learn from the response to COVID-19. I'm yet to see evidence that we're going to, though, and I think that that's because people are very, very capable of responding to a very near present danger. We're kind of set up well for that, but we're terribly bad at dealing with slow-moving, distributed, somewhat invisible threats like climate change. And so even though we know that both of these are existential crises and that they both need to be dealt with and they both need to be transformational responses and they both will have quite a lot of costs associated with them, we're able to respond to one more easily than the other. Those are quite good sort of trust-building measures. I think those are possibilities, but I also think human beings tend to revert to type. So I know when we're in the middle of it, it sort of feels like the world has changed fundamentally, and I have no doubt that there are things that will kind of flow from the pandemic well into the period after the pandemic, but I think it's too early to be able to say what those are. I don't have a particular interest in climate change, but also... So in the 4 years that we've been in government, we've banned new offshore oil and gas exploration, we passed the Zero Carbon Act, we set up the Climate Change Commission, we've introduced the Clean Car Standard, so new imported vehicles have to have lower emissions than the ones that have been coming in previously. We've introduced the rebate scheme to help to subsidise zero emission vehicles in particular. We've started the process of bringing agricultural emissions pricing in. There is a huge amount that we have done over the course of the last 4 years. But is it enough? No. And the thing is, it never will be enough. We know that every single year we are going to have to continue to take new and further actions on climate change, because this is a multi-generational battle over the course of the next 30 years and beyond. It's going to involve every part of our economy, every part of our society. And so the work is never done. Playing a constructive role.
Yeah.
I think they're really proud of the fact that... Well, in a sense, absolutely. Unfortunately, it's the only way that we can practically get there and practically participate. If there was another way to do it, I'd love to hear it. The last